Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of June 23rd, 2026. I call the meeting to order at 5:32, and I would like to ask the clerk for the roll call.
Mayor City.
Present.
Reevimo.
Present.
Councillor Legreet.
Present.
Councillor McWhorter.
Present.
Councillor Sobalski.
Present.
And I will also note Councillor Andrew Dick and Councillor McDonald are not present in the chambers at this time. One other thing I will note is I do apologize to anybody who is watching from our live stream, as our camera angles are a little bit off, and I do apologize for that. We are having some internal issues here in the chambers, but bear with us, and I'll pass it back to the mayor.
Thank you. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all of the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Can I please have you stand for O Canada? Any declaration of interest? Hearing and seeing none. All right, well, moving on to presentations. Just 1 second. So I'm going to turn it over to our Director Treasurer Hodge to do the 2026 to 2035 long-term budget outlook.
Okay. I'll get started. Thank you. So this is a 2026 to 2035 long-term budget outlook. On the second slide, there's a timeline that shows that it's being presented today, June 23rd. So this presentation on this slide, it also has the next squares for the next steps. It's to give an idea of the budgeting landscape prior to the 2027 budget being prepared and the trajectory that it can aim for. It's also showing part of the annual budget cycle and what will be happening along the way. So we'll present this outlook this evening. What I've noted here on the second step in the timeline is that we have new budgeting software that's a citywide budgeting. That's the brand name of it. And it's getting set up, and it's about to become available to all departments for the town, and it's going to be able to monitor the budget, monitor to actuals, and this will be something that will be updated daily for viewing, and will be where the new budget is also entered and being built by the staff to be done for 2027. This software will allow adjustments and will follow the budget revisions and changes that are made during that budget process. And it will also be able to allow more formatable reports to be generated. So during the time between tonight and the meeting scheduled in August, there are reports scheduled on the corporate work plan, and they'll be being worked on, and I'll make note of those later on in the presentation. As budgets are being prepared and reviewed, there's typically new information received along the way. And going into the fall, this new information can be incorporated into the account lines and given refined amounts. And this will all be happening in advance of a new term of council, where the budget at that time will again be undertaken using the strong mayor budgeting framework. The third slide looks at just the long-term budgeting outlook as the different factors that are involved. And this is the beginning point, not the end point of this process. So similar to it, like when you see a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, we're looking for solutions and planning strategies to meet our goals. The first three squares are the main focus tonight on this slide, and the remaining squares are to follow, but they're also ongoing part of the living document approach that we'll take. The municipal landscape and programs and legislation can change quickly at times, and this is anticipated to continue in municipal arena, and this will be part of navigating this. The goals from this are to observe the current status we have and look at targeted approaches and gather questions. On the next slide, we've noted some of the long-term budgeting considerations. These are high level, and they're concerns and factors that affect the way we approach this. The first one is the ARL, that's our borrowing capacity. It's measured by the province, and we talk about it quite often. And quite a bit of the capacity that's already been utilized, so we keep that in mind. We would like to preserve what we have there so that if we ever experience emergency asset replacement, we would have more security and less risk to tax rate increases at that point, having that ARL still available. Another thing that's been identified in the asset management plan is a funding challenge and a gap in funding for assets. Another point of concern is there's been a current value assessment freeze that the province put on impact. It's been for several years, and it creates some anxiety in Ontario because it's a potential for assessment redistribution, and those values are as of yet unknown as to how that will affect everyone. Some of the projected growth in our studies for the town have it's been more deferred and not happening quite as quickly as maybe it was anticipated or hoped for. So that will come along. It's just a matter of timing. So we look at that. The town also has to ensure that it manages safety and liability, and there's costs involved in that. Legislative changes have to be met and satisfied as they arise. It's important to maintain the levels of service that are established. And one thing of note that we just saw last week is development charges. There's current opportunities there through the development charge reduction program that was applied for. And also of note is if the town is not successful in that application, we're still doing our DC background study, and there's still an opportunity to look at resuming a fuller DC calculation and DC charges and establish rates to assist in to budget for growth and pay for growth. So on the next slide, we've made use of some assumptions here. There's a chart listing them, and these assumptions are applied to project reasonable increases over the long term. Revenue, for example, is projected at 2%, and that would be in regards to things like fees and charges. They're applied across a 10-year range, and once again, As each budget year is reviewed, these can be reviewed for reasonability and adjusted if needed. And from these assumptions, what we're looking at tonight are 3 examples, and those are listed here as A, B, and C. And these 3 methodologies are not the only options available to the town, but they're 3 that we're using as a basis to see where we stand. The first one is showing a base level of capital funding to reserves. The second one we will look at is what if we funded the full requirement of the asset management plan as recommended in the 2025 asset management plan. And C, the third one, is a reduced amount of capital funding going to reserves, so that by targeting that, we would provide a more stable and predictable level of levy increases. And we've looked at an example of what if we targeted 3% year over year. These 3 scenarios assume that there will be no increase in levels of services and no new staffing or services or additional support to new initiatives or organizations unless a corresponding decrease is enacted to provide an equivalent offset. That's a very strong position to take, and there'd be a lot of discipline in that, and knowing that there has to be flexibility there. That's why we look at this as a living document. And any additional growth or grants or investments or asset disposal values could add resources to these scenarios, which could be beneficial and help our mitigation of this. On the next slide, we're looking at the annual capital funding required. This was examined in the 2026 budget, and it's a little bit of a concerning number. Asset replacement cost under tax supported on this chart that's taken from the asset management plan is $330 million. And so that worked out, that it was a calculation of about $10.2 million a year required if attempting to fully follow the asset management plan. The budget's around $4 million, and that's shown in the chart here as well. And it shows a variance of the $6 million and change because of that. So that's part of the challenge we're facing. And that's all kind of where it leads us in the next slide. So here we have an annual capital funding comparison. It's giving comparison to a fully funding of the capital asset replacement required versus the continuation of the approach from the 2026 budget versus the third option, which would be a targeted reduced amount. What we're looking at here is funding is at about 40% year over year against the $10 million requirement. We do about 40%. It shows the difference. And each year we increase that amount by 5% if we follow what we've done currently. If you look at the line that's listed as the budget base level, it's the second line down. That's the amount that will be transferred into reserves and available to fund capital on an annual basis. So you'll see here on the targeted budget line, an example of reductions that would start in 2027 and what that would look like. And these reductions are a potential mechanism to allow a targeting of the levy increases. You will also see these on the second line from the bottom. You'll see these numbers on upcoming slides. So for example, under 2027, you'll see an amount 743,626. So we'll follow those numbers through our examples across that second line from the bottom. In the next slide, we have the same reserve contribution examples as the lines across the chart here, just showing there's that gap between the recommended fully funded versus the two other options we're looking at, sort of the one that's the status quo and the one below that that helps us manage the levy. There's also a chart here that's an excerpt from the asset management plan, and it shows what it has calculated as the difference in funding required, plus also the difference in an escalated plan and how that would affect the levy as an additional increase. If you wanted to blend in the asset backlog and gap and bring it forward on a bit of a hybrid increase. So on the next slide, we're looking at an operating budget base level. So for the long-term financial planning of this, it's assuming that the services remain at the same level that they're currently at. That's before seeing what happens with the new term of council and the approach that's taken with the budget from the mayor. So the reason we've looked at these three examples is because it would be somewhat difficult to factor in all the variables that could possibly happen. So we've taken the current year budget that's passed and the current levels of service that are in place with that. And when we look at these examples, it's as if all other things were to remain the same. So this is a summary of the subtotals of projecting the full line-by-line budget. That's what we see on this slide. And it starts with the 2026 budget that was adopted, and it shows there that under the levy increase on the third line down in green, that we had a 7.74% increase. In that 2026 column, the first column on the left there, the revenue equals the combined operating and capital. And the difference at the bottom because of that is zero because it's balanced. So if we look at this as a continuation over a longer term, 2027 projects an 8.52% levy increase. But this will be readdressed in our third methodology that I have here in this presentation. So this compares the upcoming operating targets to the total operating amounts, and the difference is the amount that is being targeted to be reduced. So in the 2027 column, looking down, you will see a difference from target of 743,626, which is the number I'd mentioned on the previous slide, and that's where it carries down into this calculation. If you were to look at this as a worksheet, the capital spending is added to the total. As capital spending is added to the total, capital would increase and the transfer from reserves would increase equally, and this would maintain the levy amount as it's shown, and it would work its way to the percent difference at the bottom from the target. So the target amount for capital spending is $3.4 million for 2027. And as that was rolled into the combined operating and capital, you would see that number shrink from the 2.6 million. And in this example, the worksheet would bring it to the difference from the capital target to the combined operating capital of the 743,000, meaning it had spent what was anticipated to be transferred in to reserves out of reserves. That's a base level, all things being consistent. The next slide shows what would happen if we tried to fund the asset management plan in full. Just to quickly observe what the full amount would be, the funding requirement, it shows that the levy from 2026 to 2027 would have a 55% increase. So this example illustrates that this would not be a feasible or a sustainable option. If capital spent and transfers from reserves were 10.4 million in 2026, sorry, just checking my note here. In the 2026 column, the difference is 0% because our 10.7 million spent is the same as what we show as a target. So yes, in the 2027 column next, moving forward, we show that the target is 10.4 million. So if we did in fact spend a total of capital of 10.4 million, at the bottom, where it reads 25.13%, that would work its way to zero, meaning that we fully funded it and we met the target and it was balanced. But based on this large increase, this is why I want to look at a targeted approach. So that's the next slide. So this approach, it's showing a reduction in the annual contributions into reserves for capital spending to bring stability to the annual levy increase. This illustrates a consistent 3% levy increase across all the years. If the worksheet was updated to the targeted spending on capital of $3,407,492, and the transfer from reserves is also the same, then the difference at the bottom would come to zero, and the difference for capital and combined would flow through, and that would maintain the 3% levy increase, and you would see the operating amount of $23,999,072 combined with the capital target, and that would give you your budget. On the next slide, I've shown this as a summary comparison. The left side has an initial large increase in 2027 of 8.52%. That was also seen on the previous slides, and then it tapers. This is due to some of the internal financing reaching completion, and there's also, that's if there's no other major variations or demands factored in. The right side summarizes the targeted increases and summarizes the reductions to the transfers to reserves from the targeted approach, and it's from the previous slides, and it shows that there would be 6.9 million less contributed to capital reserves using this methodology, but it would alleviate pressures on levy increases. The next slide shows where the asset repayment limit stands, and that in 2027 there'd be a debt completed, and it also, you don't see anything past 2027 because this methodology has not factored in new borrowing. At this rate, the ARL has some capacity, and that would be good to have in place for emergency asset replacement or grant opportunities where some matching funds are required. The next slide shows the debt listing. This is a sheet that we include in presentations regularly. It shows the internal financing that's planned for 2027, and it also shows us that there's no taxation-based debentures maturing before 2035 on the top portion of this chart, but there's 4 internal debts maturing during this time frame between 2026 and 2035 on the bottom half, and this will relieve some budget pressure along the way as those mature, and they will no longer be required to be factored in for taxation amounts yearly. On the next slide, there's some other factors that will affect future budgets. And these are some that can provide benefits, and grants is an important one. It's important for the town to carefully consider how to manage the potential revenue increase that can result from growth, because growth is one of the opportunities listed here, and how to apply resulting growth and funding that can come from that and where it's allocated. And of course, along the way, staff will continue to identify and apply other ways to find efficiencies and to mitigate unexpected challenges. For the final slide, for the upcoming steps, these are things that will be worked on in the upcoming months. These are items that will give greater information and insight into the long-term planning and more defined parameters to work from. And one other one that's also in the corporate work plan that I didn't list on this slide is the establishing of and implementing of a 10-year capital plan in consultation with the asset management plan. And I'm just reading this up from the work plan, including financing strategies to help guide budget deliberations. So that's being worked on continuously, and that will get integrated with longer-term planning. So what we're looking at here is a flexible approach. It's not something here that we would try to use to lock the town into one single path or decision, and it's definitely a starting point to evolve from. And one of the key reasons for doing this is to try to get some stability in the levy increases, but also to gather information, gather questions, gather ideas, and factor those in and see where we can go next to utilize this to our best abilities in our upcoming budgets. And if there's any questions or ideas, that's kind of, I think, the key takeaway this evening would be to gather those.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Hearing none. All right, thank you very much. Yeah, CEO.
Yes, thank you. So just for council's information, so we are looking for feedback on this over the course of the break. So if there are any comments, questions, concerns from members of council with respect to this information, please pass it along to the treasurer, copy myself, and the clerk. It would be much appreciated. Just in terms of the path forward with respect to the 2027 budget. So we are in an election year. We are encumbered by restricted acts. We are encumbered by the limitations on strong mayor powers with recent amendments to OREG 53022, which stipulate that the mayor cannot propose the budget for the year immediately following an election year. That said, we are looking to other municipal partners that are in the same situation in terms of an approach to prepare at the staff level a draft budget, and in so doing to be prepared for the incoming mayor and council. I don't think it would be very prudent to sit on our hands until after the election and then begin the budget process at this time. So we fully intend to undergo a process of preparing a draft budget for consideration by the incoming mayor and presumably council at the pleasure of the mayor. To that end, we do have a draft internal budget process that SLT will be reviewing, and we'll be going through the process of preparing draft operating capital budget over the course of the summer and into the fall. To assist us in that and appreciating that we operate at the pleasure of council, we will be looking for, we call it interim budget direction, appreciating that this term council will not be setting the budget for 2027, but in the absence of the incoming council being in these chairs, we will need interim direction. So that will assist us, presumably informed by the content of Treasurer Hodges' presentation and one of the scenarios as council would prefer it. So just to give council an awareness and some information in terms of the process that we'll be undertaking over the course of the summer. And again, if there is any feedback with respect to the projections or the information contained within the long-term financial plan report, please feel free to pass that along. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to announcements, just a couple of them. A reminder to residents that to keep the community informed on summer road construction projects, the town now has a dedicated construction updates section on our website. Residents can visit renfrew.ca for the latest updates or download the Town of Renfrew app to receive construction notices directly to your phone or email. Canada Day is next Wednesday. Obviously, a lot of planning has gone into it. We would love to see you come and celebrate with us. Activities, entertainment for all ages. Enjoy a full day of family-friendly fun, including a classic car show, live entertainment, Indigenous artisan fair, inflatables, face painting, games, giveaways, a free community barbecue, Citizen of the Year awards, museum display, and more. The celebration concludes with a spectacular fireworks display at dusk. Bring your family and friends and join us as we celebrate Canada together. A reminder that the 2026 municipal election will take place this October, and now is the time to make sure you are registered to vote. As of January 1st, 2024, Elections Ontario became responsible for maintaining the voters list for municipal and school board elections, a role previously managed by MPACT. This means that all voter registration, address changes, and updates to voter information must now be completed directly through Elections Ontario. Residents are encouraged to visit register to vote on.ca to confirm that their information is accurate and up to date. Municipalities and MPACT no longer maintain voter records, so taking a few minutes to verify your information will help ensure that you can cast your ballot. I would like to extend my sincere thank you to council members and volunteers with the Bonnechere River Trail Working Group. On Canada Day at 10 a.m. there will be a one-year celebration at the trail. So if you are interested, please come out at 10 o'clock. There will be cake and some other things happening down at the bottom, so please come for that. And I just want to thank our MPP, Billy Deneau, and our friends at MTO for organizing the public meeting last week on Highway 17. The information given is duly noted, and we thank them for that. And last but not least, unfortunately our cameras aren't working, but you will see a new face sitting around the table here. And we are very, very fortunate to have Kara Lemke as our new Director of Community and Recreation Services. She started yesterday, and I can already tell that great fit, and she comes with ample experience, knowledge of municipality stuff, so we are very excited for what she's going to do with her leadership and experience, and we want to welcome you and thank you very much. Any other announcements? Councillor Degree?
Through you, Mayor Sidney, just have a couple here. So Kids, Cops, and Canadian Tire Fishing Day will be held this year on Saturday, July 18th from 9 a.m. till noon at the Cobden Boat Launch. The event is free for all kids. Registration begins at 8:30 a.m. and just look for the OPP tent. My next announcement is that the Downtown Renfrew BIA presents That Summer Night, which will be held on Friday, June 26th from 4 to 8 p.m. There'll be live music, in-store events, shopping, dining, sampling, and a barbecue put on by the Renfrew Legion. That'll also run between 4 and 8 p.m. So for $10, you get a burger, side salad, and dessert. Music will be at Low Square, Post Office, beside Otter Valley Coffee, and beside Picket Fence. All details, including musicians and times, are on the BIA website or on social media. The next one I have is Music in the Square. Will be every Friday evening in July and August at Low Square in downtown Renfrew. The first night will be on July 3rd, and it'll be kicked off with the Doherty Sisters. July 10th will be Mitch Desolates, and then July 17th will be Andrew Green, which is their lead singer for Timberline. So some great entertainers. I would encourage residents to check it out Friday nights, and all performers and dates are on the BIA website and social media. And my last announcement, I just want to thank Warden Jen Murphy and the county staff for putting on another great Warden's Golf Tournament this past weekend. Lots of fun was had by all, with all the funds raised going to the food banks across Renfrew County, and I believe, looking at 17,000 or roughly was raised, so that's great. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on, the Renfrew Town Council convene as Committee of the Whole to consider reports for recommendations to Council. Mover, please. Councillor Sobalski, second by Councillor Degree. Any questions? All in favor? We are now in Committee of the Whole. Moving on to Community and Recreation Services. That the Committee of the Whole recommends that Renfrew Town Council approve the replacement of the Recreation Department's 2015 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 T-11 as approved in the 2026 capital budget and retain the existing vehicle as an active Recreation Department fleet vehicle to support operational requirements and service delivery across municipal facilities and properties. Mover, please. Councillor Gree, seconded by Councillor McWhirter, and I will turn it over to Acting Director Fraser.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So, as you mentioned, it was approved in the 2026 capital budget for us to replace the 2015 truck. In speaking with operations staff, it was expressed that we would love to keep that truck. It would be very nice for us to have 3 trucks in that fleet, given the increase in staff at My FM Centre and Mattaway Park. They do a lot of work and could definitely utilize that third vehicle. Some additional things that we are doing with the third truck would be park inspections and maintenance, garbage collection and disposable runs, transportation of equipment, supplies and materials, opening, servicing and cleaning the visitor information center, facility maintenance activities, event setup and tear down, and travel between recreation facilities, parks, and municipal properties. Specifically, cutting grass is where those vehicles get tied up for a lengthy period of time. I will note that the Recreation Department took on a large piece of property to cut grass for the 2026 season, so they are now cutting innovation property. Last year that was contracted out, so we are saving the town $8,000 annually by cutting that ourselves. With the amount of staff, our full amount of staff that we have right now, we're able to do that. We want to continue to be able to do that. Keeping that third vehicle would really help with that. I will also note that a lot of our staff are using their personal vehicles for town functions, and that should not be happening. That is a liability, which also just reiterates that that third vehicle would be well utilized. I strongly believe that this department could use 4 vehicles. I think keeping the third would be an asset. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Through you, Mayor, Sydney, to Acting Director Fraser. Just thank you for the report. It answered most of my questions. I just have a question with the T01, the 2007 truck. Are we surplusing that now, or what's this? Just wondering what the update is on that.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So I have just discovered as well that we still have this 2007 in our fleet. So right now we do have 3 vehicles in our fleet. Historically, up until 2022, we had 3 vehicles actively in our fleet. That 2007 has been not insured since 2022, so 4 years that it's not been insured, sitting in our compound. It did go on Gov Deals for it to be sold. From my understanding, we had received 1 bid that we did decline. It wasn't up to the amount that I think we're hoping for in 2022. And since then, it's sat in that lovely compound. I will say there's been a lot of changeover in the rec department as well as the finance department. I think it was just overlooked. So it is on Gov Deals again. It will be there for a short period of time, and if it does not go, then we will be moving forward, I can assure you, to get rid of that vehicle. Thank you.
Councillor Spolsky.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Looking at this, and understandably, another vehicle is required. I'm just curious of what kind of cost measures we can put into this 2015. I'm looking at the mileage and understanding they're low mileage, but also knowing that that doesn't mean that they don't have lots of service life to them. It's slow moving in around town and lots of idle hours, but a 2015 truck, as we're looking at a replacement value of $100,000, if there is, that's what we have scheduled for the next truck, right? So to replace this 2015, we're looking at a $100,000 truck. Is it possible to understand what a minor, I don't want to use the word restoration, but a good going over of sandblasting the frame and repainting and re-oil spraying this vehicle to potentially get another 10 years out of it? As something to look at as a cost, or are we just going to let it potentially decay over the next few years and need replacement anyways? I'm just trying to avoid $100,000 trucks every 10 years. If we can get 20 years out of a truck because of the low mileage, it would be amazing.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Great idea. I think that, given the position we're in right now, that definitely could be done. As again, approved in the 2026 budget, would like to proceed with a new vehicle. We do need that third vehicle, but to keep and maintain that 2015 and moving forward, right? Wouldn't hurt. We can definitely look into the costs of doing those services to it. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mary. I'm not opposed to a new vehicle, definitely in support of the new vehicle. I'm just looking at ways for us to help prolong the life of some of these vehicles. I know Chief Guest has had to work very hard to prolong the life of a few service vehicles over his tenure, so I'm just looking at ways that we can maximize some of these trucks for the Recreation Department.
Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor? Oh, sorry. Brief.
My apologies. Very quickly, wondering what is the idea in terms of the color of the vehicle? Ideally, it would be nice to get a white one. That way it fits into the overall fleet and we avoid the perception of this is ours and nobody uses it. You know, we did that with the fire department truck that was purchased a couple of years ago, so that when it runs its course in time, it's only allowed to be in service 15 years and has 30,000 kilometers. It's still a useful truck for the municipality. So I'm just wondering about, you know, slowly breaking down those walls.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Peter, great suggestion, and we have already discussed this, and we do plan on getting a white truck. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to E.1.2. That the Committee of the Whole recommends that Renfrew Town Council approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the Town of Renfrew and Heritage Renfrew, and further that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for adoption. Mover, please. Councillor Spolsky, second by Councillor Legree, and I'll turn it back over to Acting Director Fraser.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So Heritage Renfrew did approach the town with a delegation last June 24th, 2025. In that delegation, they did provide some overview of their organization, services, ongoing contributions to the community, as well as discussing the opportunity for municipal support. So it was further discussed in the July 8th meeting to come forward with a memorandum of understanding with Heritage Renfrew. So since that time, staff has been working with Heritage Renfrew to develop the attached draft of the MOU. The proposed 4-year MOU establishes the roles and responsibilities of both parties, the town of Renfrew as well as Heritage Renfrew. And it is a formal agreement, memorandum of understanding. We are getting used to these. It is recognizing Heritage Renfrew's role of preserving local history and archival records, supporting heritage conservation initiatives, and contributing to the cultural objectives identified within the town's proposed arts, heritage, and cultural master plan. The funds that we are looking to allocate throughout this memorandum of understanding, in 2026, it was approved in the budget for $10,000, so that one is outlined already. In 2027, they are looking for $9,600. In 2028, they're looking for $10,000, and in 2029, they're looking for $9,200. They will need to submit a budget each year annually to show what they're doing with those funds, and this is subject to council approval each year as well. So you can, when you're doing your budget deliberations, still decide if you would like to give that full amount or not. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to Development and Environment. That the Committee of the Whole recommend that Renfrew Town Council award the partial roof replacement project at 1 Innovation Drive to Garland DBS Canada Inc. and J.G. Fitzgerald & Son Limited in the amount of $326,650 excluding HST, and further the Council approve the replacement of localized structured insulation where required within the approved project budget, and further that Renfrew Town Council direct staff to proceed with tender for replacement of all 6 rooftop units. Mover, please. Councillor Degree, second by Councillor McWhorter, and I will turn it over to Coordinator Collins.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So the 2026 capital budget included replacement of the highest priority roof section at 1 Innovation Drive. Through the town's procurement policy and the Kinetic GPO program, Garland DBS Canada assisted with design, tendering, and bid evaluation. Following review of the submissions, staff are recommending award of the project to Garland DBS Canada and JG Fitzgerald and Sons for $326,685, excluding HST. We had a thermal scan completed in June, and this identified a small amount of saturated insulation, representing approximately 5.5% of the total roof area. Staff are requesting approval to replace any localized saturated insulation encountered during construction to protect the performance of the new roof and avoid future repair costs. Even with this additional work, the project remains well within the approved $500,000 budget. As part of the review with Garland, they also recommended replacing the building's 6 rooftop units at the same time as the roof, rather than waiting until their anticipated end of life in 2028. This would avoid disturbing the new roof in the future and allow any required modifications to be completed as part of the current project. Staff obtained 2 budgetary quotations from local vendors to replace the units, and the prices averaged out to approximately $100,000. Staff are seeking direction to proceed with tendering for the mechanical equipment replacement. If we were to award to Fitzgerald and also replace the rooftop units, I kind of already insinuated it, but the rooftop replacement down the road could just lead to a different footprint and just lead to some issues with sealing up to the rooftop units. So if we can do that now, it'll just prolong the life of the roof. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Legray?
Through you, Mayor Sidney. Just a question. I know that Garland would have did all the background and stuff like you said, but Fitzgerald and Sons, have they did any work for the town, or do we know any work they did? This is a fairly big project, so I'm just kind of curious if we know internally of anything they did, or.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Fitzgerald and Sons has not, to my knowledge, done any work for the town of Renfrew in the past. But through this program, Garland Canada has a list of contractors that they work with closely, so they have a lot of trust in this company.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spolsky?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And just context for Councillor Legray, in my years of crossing this field, they do have a reputable name from my years of experience, and this is their specialty in flat roofing. So.
I just have a quick question, just for clarity. The $100,000 to replace 6 rooftops, that's to replace all 6, or that's each?
Through you, Mayor, that's to replace all 6.
Okay, so we're still within the budget?
Yeah, we would still be within budget.
Perfect. Perfect. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council.
Excuse me. So did we also go ahead and authorize the 6 at the same time, the other units?
To go to tender, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that.
Moving on. That the Committee of the Whole direct staff to proceed with the further investigation of the following properties: Centennial Drive vacant lot, roll number 4748000015242207, and part of Victoria Park, roll number 4748000095055500. Mayhew Street vacant lot, roll number 4748000025222686, and Froch Street vacant parcel awaiting severance. And further, the Committee will recommend that Renfrew Town Council approve the allocation of 10% of the proceeds from the current and ongoing land sales to support the continued implementation of the surplus land program. Mover, please. Grievimo, second by Councillor Legray, and I'll turn it back over to Coordinator Collins.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Carolyn, do you mind if I hand out this little paper now? Okay. Okay. Sorry, what Carolyn? Oh. Yeah, so staff completed a surplus land review and circulated a survey to internal departments and external utility providers to identify municipally owned properties with limited operational infrastructure or strategic constraints. And based on the feedback received, 4 properties have been identified for further evaluation. The properties include Centennial Drive vacant lot, which appears suitable for residential development, a portion of Victoria Park and the Mayhew Street vacant lot, both identified in the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as potential residential development opportunities, and a portion of the Froat Street property where staff are anticipating a future commercial development opportunity that would front Froat Street. Staff are currently completing due diligence, including title searches and reviews of any easements or encumbrances. Once that work is complete, a future report will be brought forward with recommendations regarding the declaration of surplus lands and any proposed disposition process.
Any questions from council? Councilor McWhorter?
You, Mayor, I think this is for the treasurer. So we're using 10% of the sales. What happens to the other 90%? Does it go into reinvestment, or how does that work? Because I think we talked about this earlier.
Treasurer?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, part of the financial comment, I refer to an investment portfolio expansion plan, and that was also something I think I quickly touched on in the presentation earlier. The intention of that would be to have these excess funds from things like surplus land set aside and strategically invested based on municipal investment rules in conjunction with our investment policy, and then look to use the say the interest generated from those investments to also provide operating revenue annually, and to help with the budgetary pressures for tax increases and tax levy increases. So the other part of that is we're going to be looking at a reserve policy, so in drafting that, in which point if you were to want to place 10% of the sale in the reserve specifically for property usage, you could also set caps on your reserves. So each type of reserve could have, so you could build it up to a certain limit. And then if that was an acceptable limit that council had passed in the policy, then at that point you maintain it, and the difference would all go back into the investment portion, which would go to a reserve to await investment direction.
Thank you. Any other? Councilor Degree.
Through Mayor Sidney, just a comment. So I'm happy to see these come forward. I like the 10% of the proceeds going to the continued implementation of the surplus land program. So I'm definitely in support of this. So I think it's a good idea. Thanks.
Any other questions? Read the email.
Thank you. The Victoria Park, I dimly remember 20 or 30 years ago when that school was closed, there was a significant public comment about that being some kind of a land grant, and I'm only going from memory, I could be wrong. I know there was an issue with it, that it was there was something unique about that piece of property, and I don't recall what it was, and I quickly was Googling it this afternoon, but nothing came up. But are we sure of the ownership of this property and our ability to divest ourselves of it? I think that's the biggest question I have.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So I believe during our title searches on this property, that will hopefully uncover any of those possible concerns, and we'll of course bring it back. To my knowledge, we do own the property. I believe Parks and Rec cuts that property, so I think we own it, but the title search will confirm that.
Just to go with Reeve Emo's point, when I opened the Renfrew Police Youth Center there in '97, I do recall there was something about that land. There is, I don't know what it is, but there was talk of something. So you just keep an eye out for that. Yeah. Councillor Sapolsky?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And on the Victoria Park area, you know, provided answers are provided on ownership. When I look at the how it's laid out, can you explain the cutout for me, please?
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mayor. So that cutout was something that Acting CAO Withers and I discussed, as currently this is deemed a park, but it's sort of just a large field sitting there with no real infrastructure of any kind. So we were talking about the idea of keeping that one section as a park and sort of developing it into a little bit more of a usable space with maybe some landscaping and benches and things like that, where people could actually go and sit rather than it just be a large grass area.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the explanation. I suppose if it's going to be just green space and sitting, it's great. If it was going to be a play park for kids, recommendation would be to maybe move it off of Bruce Street and on a little bit quieter back street. Although visual, I understand, but just me looking at it from the outside.
Yeah, thank you. Unlikely like a swing set jungle gym, more of like hard soft landscaping, seating, trees, some nice landscaping, more of just more of a leisure area. Folks that are moving up and down Bruce Street and then up and down Albert Street would be able to just kind of rest and relax, and folks maybe from the hospital or from some of the long-term care homes to be able to have a seat. Yeah.
Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to Finance and Corporate Services. That the Committee of the Whole received the Capital Project Update June 2026 report as information. Mover, please. Revimo, second by Councillor Cebulski. And I will turn it over to Director Treasurer Hodge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is a short report for information that shows capital projects with an update so far to June 2026. In the budget, there's 10.7 million in capital projects approved, and so far in 2026, a small amount of that has been spent, but that's not uncommon at this time of year. We've put notes next to each project to show their status, how they're ongoing, and we'll be bringing this report on a regular basis moving forward. So you'll see this report again in August, where you'll see more of the progress, more notes. We'll probably add a percentage complete at that point for a greater bit of detail, and also we'll make note at that time of anything that may be a concern for carrying forward in 2027, or whether it's on track to be completed in 2026. In preparing this list, in some of the excitement last week in getting ready for the development charge reduction program application and things, I had overlooked the water and wastewater portion of capital, but just a quick note here would also be in regards to capital for the water treatment plant filter rehabilitation. The concrete rehab design has been procured, and filter 3 media replacement procured via Aqua. And for the water meters, they are procured and the project's underway, and that's scheduled for replacements to begin in July by the firm that we've gotten to do that.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Hearing none. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to infrastructure. That the Committee of the Whole received the snow removal operations service level review report as information. Mover, please. Councilor McWhorter, second by Reeve Emo, and I will turn it over to Director Bishop.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So this is just an information report regarding our snow removal operations and regarding our service levels. So at the regular meeting of Council on April 8th, 2025, Councillor McDonald brought forward a notice of motion regarding snow removal operations. Staff was directed to research and provide alternative options to the current approach of snow removal and the potential cost savings associated with the alternatives. So we have previously had a contract over the past 2 winter seasons with BEI that just ended in April of 2026. Under the contract, BEI provided snow hauling services, dozer rental for snow dump operations, and a grader rental for snow removal operations. So our current approach for snow removal, I should just note, this report is more in regard to actually picking snow and snow removal, removing it from the sidewalks and taking it away. It's more on the hauling and not the plowing. So our current approach involves town staff, and we supplement with contracted services. As mentioned, that was BEI for the past couple of years. So this typically occurs after a snowfall event, and it can take a couple of nights after that. So the contractor utilizes their grader to break up and pull the compacted and frozen snow from the sidewalk and curb areas into the roadway. If you may have noticed this on Main Street, where the snowbanks are there one day and then they're gone the next, and they're completely pulled away. Town staff do not have the equipment to do this, so that is why we call in a contractor. So then, once the snow is pulled off the roadway, town staff operate our snow blower to load the snow into tandem trucks, and we take that to the snow dump, which is behind 550 Hall. So a typical snowfall requires 3 to 4 nights to clean up, and these services are provided on an as-needed basis. So once the priority areas have been completed, which are outlined in the attached map, town staff continue snow removal operations on secondary streets using the town snowblower and trucks as resources permit. So depending on snowfall conditions and operational demands, this work may extend over several days. Councillor McDonald did bring this to my attention last year at the end of the winter, but the contract with BEI was in place until April 2026, so we were not able to do anything about it until now. The costs are outlined in the report based on the last contract we had, and the estimated contractor cost for one night of snow removal is approximately $5,000 to $7,000. The town staff involvement typically consists of 3 to 4 employees working 8-hour shifts overnight, resulting in an estimated labor cost of about $1,000 to $1,500 per night. We have some actual costs outlined in the report as well, and over the past 2 winters, we've averaged about $128,000 in snow removal costs. So the approved 2026 budget for contracted snow removal services was $125,000. That's just regarding the contracted services. To date, approximately $96,000 has been spent, and that leaves the remainder for the rest of 2026 if we do have any of those snowfall events where we have to do snow picking in November or December. So regarding alternative approaches, Councillor McDonald suggested relocating snow to adjacent properties to widen the roadways and remove the windrows between sidewalks and roadways. So while this could reduce snow hauling requirements and contractor costs, it presents some operational challenges. Downtown specifically, there's limited space to store the snow. Larger snowbanks could also reduce sight lines at intersections, impede pedestrian access, and create operational challenges for future snow clearing operations. Relocating onto private property would also introduce concerns related to salt contamination, potential flooding during snowmelt, and debris accumulation on lawns and sidewalks. So council may wish to consider an approach that prioritizes or limits snow removal activities to streets with limited on-street storage capability, or where on-street storage would interfere with a multi-use path or other higher order transportation infrastructure. Council will need to make a determination regarding winter sidewalk maintenance if that's the case, and staff can report back on options for winter sidewalk maintenance should council direct. It is not a recommendation to eliminate contracted snow removal services altogether. This would reduce the town's current level of service. Public Works staff do not currently have sufficient resources to maintain the existing level of service without the contractor's assistance. The current combination enables the town to maintain its existing level of service while maintaining the roadway width, pedestrian accessibility, and public safety throughout the winter season. Any future changes to snow removal service levels can be considered as part of future budget and service level discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Cebulski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Maybe an observation. I hope it's that I'm not becoming numb to big numbers. But for contracted services, I don't find it, for the work that happens throughout the winter, I don't find the number exceedingly high for snow removal out of our main street core. And I know most of the residential areas get at least one pass throughout a heavy snow season. So it's not alarmingly high to me for some strange reason. I'm not sure if that's good or bad.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. There's no legislative services, nothing from the office of the CAO. The Renfrew Town Council rise from the committee of the whole. Mover, please. Councilor Quarter, second by Councilor Legree. All in favor? We are at a committee of the whole. On to external boards committees. Renfrew County Council and Committee Summary, May of 2026. Review.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, just some very brief highlights. So when you look at the section on delegations and you see the Lanark Renfrew Immigration Settlement Services provided assistance to 123 newcomers through 196 interactions. That's an increasing number from past years. I can recall when the number of newcomers to the county ever requiring assistance was in the teens. And so, it says something about moving forward. Also, you'll note the Renfrew County Housing Corporation's vision forward. It's something to read about changing the stock-over. And 135 Francis Street is an example of that, where it's a single unit taken off the property and then 3 units put back on the property. I should also note, County Council was very appreciative of the partnership with the town of Renfrew and the willingness to look at doing things with that old stock. There are about 55 more units in that area, which they're looking at doing something different with. It may involve joining the units together and doing 8 and 10 plexes. There's been a variety of ideas put forward to them, so we'll see what is done. I believe we're working on another one right now to take off of Francis Street and replace with a 3-plex. And then moving down to the forestry report, just very quickly, over the next decade, approximately 1,700 hectares are planned for harvest with projected revenues of $2.3 million. So that is what that does is it allows planting of more than has been taken out of the stock, put back into the stock. And moving along a little further, you can see the tender awards, and then on social services, the 524 Nelson Street is going to market. It is a long time rent geared income structure. It is past its useful life. What's happened now is it's become an attractive property because it overlooks the Algonquin Trail, which then overlooks the Ottawa River. So we expect that there'll be some developers interested in it. We were only able to do that because we built up 28 new homes or new rent geared income opportunities across the county, and that was part of the 3-for-1s here. And so you're going to see some of the more marketable properties going out to market in the next little while, and the funds used to rehab or build new stuff. Under development of property, $25,000 was allocated from the strategic reserves for appraisal and survey work for the Class 3 industrial park, which the county has taken the lead with in a partnership with Whitewater Region. That is in the area of the current Magellan plant. Approximately 97 acres, I believe, has been rehabbed, and we're looking at establishing a County of Renfrew industrial park there for a variety of heavier industries. And some of them may be associated with mining. Should note there is a significant magnesium deposit still in the ground adjacent to that area. Magnesium is increasingly becoming a critical mineral for Canada, and there is some pursuit of meetings with the federal and provincial government. County staff have gone to a couple of mining shows as well to try and find a private equity partner. And I think that, oh, just a second. Of interest in trying to cut costs, 4 new emergency vehicles, response vehicles, are being outfitted in-house to reduce costs. What we've also been able to do is then outfit new vehicles for other municipalities, so some of our paramedic service partners. So just some of the things that are trying to push costs down. And I think that is everything that I can report to you. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Hearing none. Moving on to the Renfrew County District Health Unit, Medical Officer of Health Report, May 26, 2026.
The significant thing is the health protection piece, and it talks about the provincial average. We are greater than the provincial average right now. So approximately 95% of the students in Renfrew County catchment area have been inoculated. So that's quite a feat. Moving down, you see the food safety program again, safe water program, which is review of schools, licensed daycares, also private water systems are checked as well in the spring because most of them are connected to the tourism sector. And emergency management, again, they've been very active in working through the potential flooding. You see the update on infectious diseases and respiratory illness. Lung health in Renfrew County is concerning. It's the leading cause of cancer death in our community, and it occurs at a rate 30% above Ontario. So not really sure why yet. And COPD, again, is another one. It's 40% more common locally than across Ontario. So it's, again, we're leading Ontario in 2 very significant categories, which is not complementary, nor is it good for people's health. Just the next section talks about the smoking rates have declined. They're still higher than there's a large pool of current and former smokers, approximately 53% of adults in our community apparently. So then it talks a little bit more about lung cancer. Healthy Babies program is working really well. Conducted 1,442 visits in a year period across Renfrew County, providing service to 733 families. The drug strategy, a quick review of that. There has been a surge in, there were 10 suspected drug toxicity deaths in Q1 of 2026 compared to 12 in all of 2025. So looking at what is causing that, and will get back to us with that. And then there's some other things that you might be interested in, and that's what I can report to you, sir.
Thank you. Moving on to County of Renfrew letter, Prime Minister.
I think it speaks for itself.
Okay. And the next one?
Year-end, again, it's pretty, it's just an update. There are not many new towers being online right now. Most of them are up and running. There's a couple left, and I believe there's one that's struggling with local resistance to it, and as such, the zoning, and they may end up losing it, but we'll wait and see.
Okay. Any questions on any of those? Councillor Gray.
Through you, Mayor Sidney, to Reeve Emo. Just a question with these new towers. They're operated by Rogers. Is that, am I correct by saying that? So to see the benefit of them, you'd have to be a service with Rogers currently?
it's somewhat complicated in that Rogers has the contract. They are supposed to sign reciprocity, that's my word, but there is an actual technical term, for the other providers. Some of the other providers' towers have been scaled up, so they've added new equipment to them. So there is some dialogue between them. I'll give you this for that. So in theory, everybody's device should be working off of every tower at the end of the program, which is scheduled, I think, to be at the end of 2028.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the Downtown Renfrew BAU meeting minutes of May 11th, 2026. Councillor Legray.
So through you, Mayor Sidney, so I sit on the Downtown Renfrew Business Improvement Area Board along with Councillor John McDonald. The minutes are attached for councillors' viewing for our meeting held on Monday, May 11th. And I'll just highlight a few quick things here. So under announcements, Love Again thrift store has been moved to the previous dollar store location. And then we had quite a few celebrations of years in business. So Bright Hearing Aid Center, 2 years. Valley Tales Pet Grooming, 3 years. Bloom and Beauty, 1 year. Innabine, 3 years. And it's hard to believe, but the Briscoe boys at the warehouse, 19 years they've been there, which is crazy. So congratulations to all of them. The treasurer went through the financial reports for April, and there was no concern from the board. I updated the board on a few council updates, just with the CIP grant, summer students with public work starting, and then the bylaw changes. Lorraine Vincent reported that 2,000, with the downtown Renfrew map, that 2,000 maps have been delivered to the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association, along with bundles provided to other tourist destinations. That summer night, like I said, is June 26th from 4 to 8 p.m. Music in the Square we talked about already. The Canada flags will be put along Main Street again this year. Was a great response last year, and they will remain up until following the Craft Beer Festival. And vacancies currently in the BIA area are at 14, which is high and a bit concerning. Some of the buildings are not being maintained, creating an unattractive appearance that reduces downtown appeal. So bylaw is working with property owners to address and clean up the maintenance. So that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to items for consideration. Bear with me, it's a long one. Support for sustainable provincial funding for fire services in Ontario. So whereas municipal fire services in Ontario operate under legislative authority established by the province through statutes, regulations, codes, and prescribed standards governing training, equipment, certification, inspection, and operational requirements, and whereas municipalities are responsible for implementing and maintaining compliance with these provincial mandated requirements, primarily through local property taxation, and whereas current provincial fire service grant programs are available to both full-time and volunteer fire departments across Ontario and are distributed through competitive application processes which may not adequately reflect the differing financial and administrative capacities of urban and rural municipalities, thereby highlighting the need for a more balanced and equitable funding approach. And whereas volunteer firefighters represent approximately 70 to 75% of firefighters in Ontario and protect the majority of communities across the province, particularly in rural areas, where they are often the first emergency responders on scene, and whereas other provincially regulated emergency services, including policing and paramedic services, receive stable and predictable provincial funding contributions or cost-sharing arrangements, and whereas the absence of a comparable to stable funding model for fire services creates a structural imbalance between provincial regulatory authority and municipal financial responsibility, and whereas resilience and competitive funding programs contribute to budget uncertainty, limits long-term financial planning, and may not reflect actual operational needs, thereby impacting service sustainability and emergency preparedness. And whereas stable and predictable funding is essential to maintaining emergency preparedness, firefighter safety, service sustainability, and equitable protection for residents, Regardless of the municipal size or tax base, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Renfrew respectfully calls upon the Province of Ontario to transition from competitive fire service grant programs to a permanent, stable, and predictable non-competitive funding model to support municipalities in meeting provincial legislated fire protection requirements, and that such funding be structured to provide equitable and predictable annual support for operational readiness and training costs associated with volunteer, composite, and full-time fire departments across Ontario, and that the annual funding allocation be reviewed and adjusted to more appropriately reflect the level of provincial funding support currently provided to other provincial regulated emergency services, including police, paramedics, and that this resolution be circulated for endorsement to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Michael Kersner, Minister of Solicitor General, the Honourable Kinga Surma, Minister of Infrastructure, the Honourable Rob Flack, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Billy Deneau, MPP for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke, Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, Ontario Professional Firefighters Association, Ontario Volunteer Firefighters Association, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and Rural Ontario Municipal Association. Mover, please. Revimo, seconded by Councillor Legree. Revimo?
Yeah, just make one friendly amendment and add Minister Jill Dunlop. She's the Minister, I think, of emergencies or emergency preparedness, and there may be funding there if there is any. Very quickly, I think, this is something that's going to plague fire departments for a long time, not having consistent funding. We look at the 1.1 million or whatever we're going to be spending on a new fire vehicle. That happens, it's essentially preordained at a certain point on the calendar where we have to replace a vehicle, and then another one happens. I should also note that some municipalities bear a larger burden because of the mutual aid agreement. And so there are some specialties. So you have some who do water rescues, you have some who do highway extractions, you have our department which provides a ladder truck, so that others don't have to. And I think those extra burdens, while sometimes they can be recovered through insurance claims or some kind of a mutual funding network, it's not enough. And so I think the province has to accept their responsibility in ensuring people are safe, given the not unwarranted restrictions they've placed on, or emphasis they've placed on training, and then also equipment readiness, and then also when you look at what they're talking about in terms of education, that requirement for part-time staffs, that's a fairly onerous load. So I think they have to accept their responsibility to be a partner.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing, yeah, Councillor Legree.
Through you, Mayor Sidney, I agree with Revimo. Like, this is starting to be a bit of a concern for a lot of municipalities in Renfrew County. Like, the truck I think we're replacing was $600,000 or $700,000. Now it's over $1 million, right? Even with volunteers, the days, I'm sure when Chief Guest started, I remember here's your pager and bunker gear, and away you go. Now the training that's involved is, it's very expensive, and they stick around or not. So yeah, I'm definitely in support of this, so thanks.
Sorry, Chief, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. Just because we talked about the new truck that we're going to have to buy, it's over $1 million, and going in line with what Revimo said about, the province puts a lot of onus and puts a lot of rules and regulations. So how long can we have a truck? Based on what the province tells us.
It's really up to this council how long you choose to keep the truck. The authority behind it is Fire Underwriters Survey, and typically what that states is your front run truck, the truck that's responding to every call. Basically, it's 20 years maximum.
Thanks.
Should council choose not to replace that truck, again, that's at your discretion. However, there are some consequences, and you can look at the liability factors behind that as well. When you're running with a 30 or 40-year-old truck, there are some effects to that. If the truck breaks down at a response to a call or at an incident, then there's certainly some consequences behind it.
So just for clarification, it's also can impact insurance, right? Like,
Correct. It impacts the town's insurance, but also the stakeholders, meaning everybody that insures their home or their business in the town of Renfrew. Because fire underwriter survey is based on how the town can respond to emergencies, meaning the level of training that we have, but also the equipment that we have.
perfect, thanks. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried, thank you, council. H is for information. If there's anything anybody wants clarification or wants to talk about. Moving on to confirmation of minutes. The Renfrew Town Council confirmed the minutes of the regular meeting of council dated June 16th, 2026. Mover, please. Councilor McWhorter, seconded by Reevimo. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Matters arising from committee of the whole. The Renfrew Town Council adopt the final resolution considered in the Committee of the Whole on June 16, 2026. 1, that Renfrew Town Council approved the reduction of office hours at My FM Centre to close at 9 p.m. on weekdays and 2 p.m. on weekends. 2, that Renfrew Town Council approved the Memorandum of Understanding between the Town of Renfrew and Renfrew Minor Hockey Association, and further that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for adoption. 3, that Renfrew Town Council direct staff to proceed with enhanced painting of accessible parking spaces within both municipal parking lots and accessible on-street parking spaces within the downtown core through the town's contracted line painting program. 4, that Renfrew Town Council authorize staff to proceed with additional geotechnical investigations and associated changes to the scope of work for Hall Avenue reconstruction design project. 5, that Renfrew Town Council approve the recommended changes to the commemorative naming policy, and further that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for adoption. 6, the Renfrew Town Council approve the recommended changes to the records and information management policy, and further that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for adoption. 7, the Renfrew Town Council establish a joint election compliance audit committee for the 2026 to 2030 term, and that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward to adopt the terms of reference and confirm the recommended member appointments. And 8, the Renfrew Town Council authorize the execution of a shared service agreement with the County of Renfrew for economic development services, and that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for council's consideration and adoption. Mover, please. Reevimo, second by Councilor Legris. Any discussion on any of these? Councilor Legris.
Through Mayor Sidney, I wasn't here when these came to Committee of the Whole. I just want to thank Acting Director Fraser for bringing the reduction of hours forward to council. I think this is a great example of staff bringing efficiencies to council, and I just want to thank her for that, so thanks.
Any other comments? Councilor McWhorter.
Mayor, I'm just wondering with the painting program, when would that start? Because I'm assuming that's also the arrows and all the rest of the markings that go with traffic control.
Director Bishop.
Yep, through you, Mayor. So our operations assistant has been in contact with AccuLines. That's the company that's going to do it, and they should be anytime, and they do most of their work overnight.
Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Matters arising directly from Committee of the Whole. That Renfrew Town Council adopt the final resolution considered in Committee of the Whole on June 23rd, 2026. E.1.1, that Renfrew Town Council approve the replacement of the Recreation Department's 2015 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 T-11 as approved in the 2026 capital budget, and retain the existing vehicle as an active Recreation Department fleet vehicle to support operational requirements and serve delivery across municipal facilities and properties. E.1.2, that Renfrew Town Council approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the Town of Renfrew and Heritage Renfrew, and further that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for adoption. E.2.1, that Renfrew Town Council award the partial roof replacement project at One Innovation Drive to Garland DBS Canada Inc. and J.G. Fitzgerald and Sons Limited in the amount of $326,685, excluding HST, and further the council approve the replacement of localized saturated insulation where required within the approved project budget, and further the Renfrew Town Council direct staff to proceed with the tender for replacement of all 6 rooftop units. Mover, please. Councilor Legris, second by Councilor Cebulski. Any comments, discussion on any of these? Hearing none. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to bylaws, that the bylaws listed on the agenda of June 23rd, 2026 be read a first, second, and third time and passed. 2026-58, execute a memorandum of understanding with the Renfrew Minor Hockey Association for the use of facilities and associated spaces within the MyFM Center. 2026-59, adopt a new salt management plan that will update as required by Environment Canada, Code of Practice for Environmental Management of Road Salts. 2026-60, adopt a revised commemorative naming policy. 2026-61, adopt a revised records and information management policy. 2026-62, establish a joint election compliance audit committee for the 2026 to the 2030 term. And 2026-63, execute a shared service agreement with the Corporation of the County of Renfrew for the provisions of economic development services. Mover, please. Councilor McWhorter, second by Councilor Legree. Any discussion on any of these? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to motions which notice has been previously given. That Renfrew Town Council direct staff to submit an application to the Build Community Strong Fund for building improvements at One Innovation Drive to address building and fire code compliance requirements, and that the council direct staff to include in the application a request for funding for a permanent backup generator and associated electrical upgrades at the MyFM Center to support emergency preparedness and ensure reliable operation of a designed emergency facility, designated emergency facility. Moved by Revimo, seconded by Councillor Legree. Reeve, do you have anything you would like to?
Thank you. I'd asked for I think you received in your package, the addition of the generator. After we talked about the Build Connections, Build Community Strong Fund, I started thinking about the generator, mentioned it, and then by amazing coincidence, it became a topic 4 days later. But we'd already started the process to include this because it's always been an issue for us, and Councillor Sobalski and Councillor Legree, those were one of the conversations we had about, do we wire the building so that only half of it is utilized and the other half isn't? What loads were needed on the older portion? So I think it's wise now to move on it. We do have a responsibility to our own community, but at the same time there's an assumed responsibility, I think one that we've kind of grown into to the surrounding community if necessary. And I think during COVID, when you saw the armed forces bunking down in the Mattaway Center a few times to help out, I think we have to keep doing things to honor our commitment to our own community, but also to the larger community.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Any notices of motion? Hearing none. We do not have closed. Moving on to the confirmatory bylaw. That Renfrew Town Council adopt the confirmatory bylaw 2026-64 and that it be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Mover, please. Revimo, second by Councillor Sobalski. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? That's carried. As Council will note that it says upcoming meetings of Council and Committees, regular Council meeting of July 7th, 2026 at 5:30. That was set tentatively in case we needed it. So at this point we do not need it, so following discussions. This meeting will not proceed as such. The next regular Council meeting will be scheduled for August 11th at 5:30 p.m. Should any urgent matters arise during the summer break, a special meeting of Council may be called in accordance with the town's procedural bylaw. And I just want to, on behalf of Council, I want to thank staff, my colleagues for their continued work and commitment to making Renfrew better. And I wish everybody a safe and enjoyable summer. And we'll see you in August, hopefully. And with that, we are adjourned at 7:06.